Hello again, my Wulong Fallen Dynasty friends. This is Karima with another build video, this time mixing things up a little bit with fire and poison. Of course, I have already made a previous pure poison focus build, but this time I decided to mix things up. As you probably are aware, burning enemies after you poison them actually happens to have quite a good synergy between these two kinds of damage, and we are taking things to a whole new level by not just focusing on having the best out of that synergy, but also by making the most out of having a high wizardry spell damage in our build. So in this case, what we are using for this particular build is we are using the Instigator of Evil, as just the same as I have in my pure poison build. This will grant you a spirit gain from deflecting 2.8%, elemental damage 2.9%. So elemental damage means toxic, fire, ice, whatever. And in this case, because we are using both fire and poison, this will benefit both sides of the story. And you also get damage amplification on enemy upon wizardry spell. It's what we'll be doing, so we'll get that quite a lot. And wizardry spell damage increased by 8.1%. To top things up, we are also using two items from the Way of Tianzu set. We are using the staff and the hat, as you can probably tell, because fashion solds. And not only that, but it will also give us a little bit of HP by 11 and wizardry spell spirit consumption reduction by 2.1%. We also have this little bow here, the Grace of Zhuanshu, the Black Emperor, simply because this will give us a deflect spirit consumption of minus 2.5%. And because this is a spell-focused build, yes, you will be hitting enemies with a sword every now and then, but most important, you are going to want to deflect the attacks by those very same enemies. This applies both for PvE purposes and for PvP purposes. Don't go around going toe-to-toe with your enemies with this build. It's not the idea. Don't go bursting with your sword. Yes, it's got an attack power of 605, which is good, but this is good for landing hits in between here and there, and maybe for some fatal strikes. But again, I repeat, don't focus on using your weapon. This weapon has a nice special martial art, the Starlight Blade, which I will demonstrate what it does. Basically creates 6 phantom swords, and then they hit the target. When using this martial art, if every single of the swords hits the target, it does around 400 damage. So it can be quite useful for PvE purposes. Again, for PvP, it is good to have a ranged option that isn't just the spells. But I tend not to use this much. As you can see, it doesn't cost a lot of spirit. It costs about alpha bar. But I would rather use my spells instead. As for the rest of the build, we are using the repeating crossbow for the set bonus requirement mitigation, of course. And again, I have the hat of the Tianzu set. And then the rest is the evil, the Instigator of Evil set. I also throw a little large grass knot, which is part of the aspiration of restoring the Han Empire, simply because it gives another 10 HP, which is going to be very helpful because we are very squishy with this build. And my build is actually not even finished. As you can see, I only have the chest at +9. Everything else is +8. The sword is +9, but again, you have to keep in mind that if you do fully upgrade, you'll have a little bit more defense. But in any case, it's always good to have that extra HP there. But most important is because the special effects that I found to be in these two specific accessories actually help on the long run. They do quite a lot of good synergy that will benefit both for PvE and for PvP. So what you want as special effects for this build is you want to use toxic damage, flame attack power, toxin attack power, and spirit gain from deflecting on the weapons. As you can see, they both have exactly the same thing. Again, the staff is here just for the bonus set. I don't really use the staff, but you could be using it if you want. The only thing and the only reason why I wouldn't recommend using the staff is that because this staff scales A with the wood virtue, D with the metal virtue, and B with the water virtue, and our sword scales A with wood, C with fire, and A plus with metal. And if you take a quick look at the distribution of our levels, we've got 30 in wood, 15 in fire, 20 in earth, and metal virtue of 85. I actually have 4 points here on the water virtue, as you can tell, simply because it does help with the spirit consumption rate with the deflects a little bit. Not massively, but all those little bits combined, they help a little bit on the long run. Back to the sets. Now, as for the crossbows, I'm using damage dealt, flame attack power, toxin attack power, and on this one, flame attack power, toxin attack power, enemy status effect accumulation, and negative effect accumulation on enemy. As for the armor itself, I've got, as you can see, wizardry spell damage on every single one of them, and they are actually all exactly the same. Wizardry spell damage increase, flame attack power, toxin attack power, wizardry spell spirit consumption, and poison accumulation on enemies. What I want to show in this particular case is the confirmation of the synergy I just told you about. If you go and check the definition of poison accumulation on enemies, it will tell you that a status effect inflicted when toxin accumulation reaches a certain amount, and then it says reduces flame resistance and gradually decreases HP and spirit. Also prolongs the duration of any other negative effects. So if you manage to get an enemy poison, they will have reduced flame resistance. Therefore, your fire spells will do an increased amount of damage. And you'll also get the burning and the poisoning at the same time. Initially, I thought that if you burned an enemy that was poisoned, it will remove the poison effect, which is not the case. Both stick to the target. One does not counter the other. If the enemy, however, does use fire, it will remove the poison, as you probably are aware by now. Going back to the accessories, the reason why I chose these two. So this one is giving me wizardry spell spirit consumption, which is quite important, and wizardry spell damage as well. This one actually also gives me damage reduction upon HP recovery. If you check this one says HP restoration from wizardry spell damage. So every time you use a spell and you actually damage the enemy with the spell, you will trigger HP recovery. By triggering HP recovery, you will have damage reduction buff for a while. So as you see, these two combine together quite well, and they benefit the build itself. Also, as you can see, because we are very squishy, I have an increased resistance to certain elements. In this case, lightning resistance on this one, stone resistance, and ice resistance. It's not a lot, but everything helps on the long run. This accessory also gives me restore HP of 2.4%, which is great, and also gives me the wizardry spell damage, which is what we want with this build. This one also gives me spirit damage received reduction, which is not too shabby. It also helps on the long run. As for the spells, okay, so here is the way we are going to use this build. We are using Amplified Damage to boost our spells, and we are using Venom Snare. Once the enemy gets poison, which they tend to get poison instantly, we'll be focused in on using Bursting Fireball, because it does a significant amount of damage. So, the Lion's Roar you see here, it's mainly for PvP purposes. As you probably are aware by now, the Lion's Roar is currently bugged. It's preventing fatal strike damage completely. It shouldn't work like that, but unfortunately it is what it is. As you can see, the description says, lets out a shout that generates a shockwave. This shockwave will also debuff your enemies, which is very useful in PvP. enemies hit will be forced to lock onto you. So if you are playing PvP with a friend and you use Lion's Roar, all the enemies will have no chance to be locked onto you. But most important, it says also decreases damage taken from enemy attacks for a certain period of time. And that's the number one reason why I'm actually using this for PvP, because again, we are using a light armor build, and we are very squishy with low HP, so it's good to have that increased defense levels. Again, this is currently bugged. If you get Fatal Striked, you take no damage. Everybody is actually abusing this right now in PvP. So it's another reason why I am also using it, because if everybody is using it and you don't, you will be in a massive disadvantage against other players who are using it. As for the spirit, I'm currently using Tengshi because it's the most effective spirit divine beast to use for this build. And what does this do? It does increased spirit damage dealt to enemies afflicted with negative effects. And as you can see, when you go through the perks of this armor, for example, damage amplification on enemy upon wizardry spell is a negative effect, poison is a negative effect, burn is a negative effect. So all these things combined, your enemies will most likely constantly have some level of negative effect. But if you also take a notice here, this also applies power drop to the target enemy that a wizardry spell hits. So not only you will be applying the bonus from this one, the damage amplification, you will also be applying power drop. So it's 2 debuffs on the same enemy with one single spell. Also, most important of all, this gives us an increased wizardry spell damage of 4.3% and enemy status effect accumulation increase. So this is the number one divine beast for most spell focused builds. Now, if we manage to go to the status itself, again, we have 605 melee attack power with weapon. Again, I remind, do not focus on using the weapon. We have a 206 spirit sustainability, so it's not too bad. 236 spirit defense, again, not too bad. But then physical resistance, 8.7%, and defense 413. Keep in mind the armor is not fully upgraded, but even if it was, we are talking about you would probably have a defense of 440. So it's very low, especially for PvP. You take quite a big amount of damage. Spirit gain from attack 107%. Spirit gain from deflect, however, 116.6%. And this is very important because you are going to be focused on deflecting. Spirit consumption rates for martial arts 86%. I don't really use the martial arts, but it's good if you do use the martial art with the sword, with the phantom swords. It's good to have that option. But most important, wizardry spell damage, they only consume nearly half the amount. So this is very important for this build. As for the deflect, 96.2%, not too bad. We have agility 8 with a proportion of 88.8%, which is not too bad. But again, we are using one of the lightest sets in the game. Now, if we go to the special effects, we got an increased HP of 21. We have flame attack power total of 114. Toxic attack power total of 112. Lightning resistance, stone resistance, ice resistance. So we cover the resistance of the elements we are not using, which is very important. And then we have, and this is where the build shines, damage dealt, 2.1%. Spirit damage to enemies with negative effect, 10.2%. Wizardry spell damage, 31.4%. And elemental damage, 2.9%. Toxin damage, 3.5%. So I want you to make the math here. If I use the poison, which is toxin damage, and also counts as elemental damage, just with these two, you have an increase of 6.4%. So 6.4% plus the 31.4% is 37.8%. So you have an increased damage of 37.8%. Plus, if the enemy is poison, it's 47.9%. So basically, it could end here, but it doesn't, because we then have 2.1 plus damage. So you are doing with your spells to afflicted enemies, and they will most likely be afflicted on every time, an increased damage of 52%. Pardon me, I'm still a bit sick, but if you notice, it's a massive increase of damage of nearly 52% more damage with your spells. Again, I want to remind you, status accumulation increase, poison accumulation increase, spirit gain from deflecting, deflect spirit consumption reduction, but most important, the wizardry spell spirit consumption reduction. And then if you check our special effects that synergize with each other, we have damage reduction upon HP recovery, and we have HP recovery from wizardry spells. So these two are a constant thing, they are constantly triggering. And then you have ammo retrieval upon ranged attack, which doesn't really matter here, but it's there. Power drop and damage amplification on enemies upon wizardry spells. So all these things combined together, you'll be constantly debuffing enemies and buffing yourself in the process, restoring your own HP, reducing the damage that you take, and doing amazing amounts of damage with not just your poison, but also with the fire. It's best that I give you an example on how to use the build, both for PvE by using my usual test subject, Mr. Cow Cow, and also I will showcase a few rounds of PvP using this build. I gotta give you a heads up, however, if you use this in PvP for whatever reason, be prepared for some hate mail. I actually received some myself while I was testing this build, which can happen. I mean, you are using poison, certain people believe poison is OP, should be nerfed, it's quite broken. I mean, I can agree to a certain extent, poison is very strong, but it can be easily countered by just casting any fire spells. So even if you just buff yourself with amplified damage after being hit with poison, you will cure yourself of the poison. But one thing that I want to point out is the reason why this build works so good and works so well in PvP. So if I hit the enemy with poison, they are going to start to panic. And what's the first thing people that are poisoned tend to do? They tend to cast a fire spell and heal, standing on the same spot. So the combination here is poison and then immediately cast the fire, which will tend to explode on their faces, causing an immense amount of damage. You will see a few examples of this for PvP as well, but especially against Cow Cow. If you have made it this far into the build video, I appreciate you already. I apologize for being sick, I'm still not 100%. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't just yet, again, I ask, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your support means a lot to me and helps with the continuous growth of the channel itself. And I hope you like the build. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Leave any questions if you want. And I'm more than happy to help every time. And I will now showcase the fights with Cow Cow and some PvP duels. Now, for the fight with Cow Cow, you want to use amplified damage first. Poison him straight away. Flames to the face. Look at that much damage with just a couple of spells. You do the deflect. Some more flames. Play safe. Deflect. Get that fatal strike, but don't fatal just yet. Do the poison first. Fatal strike, buff your damage again, flames to the face, deflect his casting of the divine beast, deflect again, play safe, deflect again, more flames to the face, deflect again, poison, and then fatal strike. He's nearly dead, but the flames should finish him up. There you go. Let's do it one more time. Amplified damage, poison to the face, flames to the face, play safe, poison again, deflect, flames, deflect, don't do the fatal strike straight away, take the chance to do some damage, amplify damage, poison to the face, Flames to the face. Play safe. Wait for him to move on you. Deflect his martial art. Flames to the face. So if you take a notice on the Cao Cao's HP bar, he's got a lot of debuffs going on. So he's poison, he's burning. Look at the amount of damage that the overtime poison and burning are doing. He's got power drop and damage amplification. So everything put together works quite well for PvE especially. But now let's do some examples of PvP fights. So in this case, I'm fighting this guy next central. I took notice that he was taking forever to get into the arena area, and I decided to showcase what you can do when people do that. If you have a poison build, all you have to do is try to figure out if he's actually around. And he was right there. So if you are fighting someone who is taking forever to come into the arena area, feel free to do this, especially with a build like this. You just have to find the right angle. As you can see, the poison is not going through the door, but that's because he's too close to the door. And when that's the case, you need to find the right angle to actually get the opponent poison from this side of the door to the other side of the door. I'm still looking for the right angle here. As you can see, I used the amplified damage. Still not working. I'm still trying to get the right angle. Still not finding it. He actually manages to attack me with his glaive through the door. So instead of having a proper duel, we are just throwing each other at this point. But I wanted to showcase that this can be done if you find the right angle. So I'm going to use amplified damage one more time. I try through the door frontwards. I couldn't get the angle, but then I finally did. And he dies to the poison through the door. GG. Now, let's have some more serious fights. I'm actually fighting Sionbonta here. He's actually a very good PvP player. We are quite familiar with each other's styles by now. His poison is actually quite strong as well. I have fought him many times, but you can see my poison ticks for 125 per tick. And he's still poisoned, so I managed to finish him off quite quickly. Good fight, brother. Now for the next fight, I'm gonna showcase an example of an invasion. This build can be used for invasions, but only for areas where you have access to your poison. Because if the host has not claimed that many flags, you won't be able to access the poison. So that can suck sometimes. But in this case, he's actually unsure of what to do. He's going to hide himself. I take the chance to amplify damage. Look at the initial tick, 155, and then each tick does 108 poison damage. I don't even need to finish him off. He's already dead after that parry. Now for the next one, I'm fighting Debonair Menu 9. He's probably doesn't really know me. I don't remember fighting him before. I noticed straight away that he was playing quite defensive. Is what I call the deflect defense game. But I finished him off straight away, poisoning him and punishing him with the flames to the face at close distance. That's how you play with this build if people are playing passive. As for this one, you can see I'm in a 3 versus 1 situation. Yes, I have the NPC, but let's be honest here, the NPC actually quite sucks. He does a significant amount of damage, but he's quite stupid. So this actually happens to turn into a 3 versus me fight. As you can see, I'm fighting people not only using poison, but also using ice. I managed to stun that guy, but I couldn't take full advantage. I did manage to eventually finish him off. I tried to keep his friends away, but the ice spamming guy actually got to me. But I did manage to poison every single one of them when they were trying to get that guy up. As you can see, even though there's 3 of them, they're actually playing quite passive. I tried to get some crowd control going on here, making sure they all stay in a visible angle of the camera, because you don't want them coming onto your back. They actually managed to stun me there. I tried to get some distance between me and this guy using the Gooding Blade, because he's just spamming the martial arts. As you can see, the host and this other guy are already down. He does manage to hit me with this, but I then finished the job with 162 initial tick, and then 112 per tick on this last guy. I claim victory in a 3 versus 1 situation when it's not that easy. Now, as for a more serious duel, 1 versus 1, this guy is using actually a tank build very similar to my own tank build, as you can see. He's probably familiar with me because he's keeping his distance, even though he's using the heavy armor sets. He tries to poison me, which he actually succeeds, but I cure myself with the fire spell. I stay at close distance, try to get him poisoned, which I manage. 116 initial hit, but then he gets 86 damage per tick of the poison, and I finish him off. Now for ex-convict 77, I actually became friends with this guy, but he actually made the mistake of using martial arts straight away, and I finish him off immediately with a combination of poison and flames. Now, Unholiest Vulcan. I have fought this guy before. He was ganking me with his little friend, but now this is my world and he's on a 1v1 situation. Therefore, he was more worried about running away from me than actual fighting, which is fair enough. I mean, if it's your style, it's your style. I just find it incredibly boring. And it's not like I am using my normal tank build, which has quite significant amounts of melee damage. In this case, I'm actually using a light armor set, and I'm a sorcerer myself. So this should be a way more engaging duel. Unfortunately, as I said previously, people sometimes like to run around in circles, wasting a lot of time. So my strategy here with this guy is try to keep his spirit as high as possible. As you can see, he's not doing very well at managing his spirit. My spirit is quite high at the moment, but that's because I've got the lingering poison going on. I'm just waiting for it to go, which it finally does. Spirit starts going down. I finally managed to stun him, but he does manage to deflect my fatal strike. He's going to try the martial arts, and he's going to try one more time. These are quite easy to deflect when you are expecting them and you know how they work. Again, he's doing a very poor job of managing his spirit. There was a bit of a teleportation going on there. I finally managed to stun him, fatal strike, and finish him off with the poison, turning his weapon against him. Now I'm fighting this guy, Kai X Uchiha. I notice again, this guy is playing very passive, although he's the one using the heavy weapon here. I tried to play the simulating strikes with tapping the guard button. I managed to fatal strike him and then finish him off with the poison. Now for this fight, I'm actually fighting again a 2 versus me situation. Again, the NPC is quite useless here. Tried to get him poisoned, didn't work. I managed to parry his martial arts. He actually got hit by the flames as well. I knew he was going to heal, so I used the poison straight away. Finished this guy off quite quickly. Now, I play on the defensive. I noticed that guy is busy with the NPC. I am taking the chance to recover some spirit, stay on defensive, let the NPC land some of his own damage, play safe, stay on defense, prevent him from resurrecting his friend. I buff myself up just in case he comes for the resurrect. He does. I do the poison straight to the face, and he of course doesn't make it. 159 initial tick, 100 and something per tick after that. It's quite a lot of poison damage. Good game. As for the next one, I'm fighting actually a guy I became friends with, Reaper of Arabia. He's actually quite good. As you can see, I played defensive with trying to get him to be stunned, which I managed. I used the poison and I used the combination with the flames and I finish him off. This was a very good duel. I was quite lucky with the flames landing every single hit. Now, for this one, I'm actually fighting a guy that is focused on using some fire spells and doing some running attacks, which is fair enough. I try to get some deflects going, trying to trade some hits with the poison. He manages to hit me with the fire and cures himself up, which is well played. I buff myself. I notice his spirit is quite high. I manage to stun him, land that fatal strike, use the flames to the face. He does manage to survive all those hits. well played. He comes with the martial arts. I play defensively. I probably could have deflected those, but I wasn't too sure on the distance. I get him poisoned again, 93 per tick, and then I finish him off with the flames. Quite a significant amount of damage with all those buffs and debuffs. Now, last but not least, me in a it's actually a 3 versus me situation again. You can see these 3 guys are actually all throwing stuff at me at the same time, spamming martial arts. I managed to deflect and fatal strike this guy, do the poison on this one, finish him off quite quickly. He was down straight away. The other guy, fortunately for me, was entertained fighting the NPC. I'm sorry, I had to take a little giggle because they were all just spamming martial arts on my face, which is quite funny. I prevent this guy from resurrecting his friends, and then I finish him off with a fatal strike. GG. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing again if you haven't just yet. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one, and I hope you have a lovely day. Cheerio!